Steganography. It's a funny word about the art of hiding clues in plain sight, so only those who know what they're looking for will find answers. For example, there's a hidden face in the U.S. $20 bill. Just hold it up to the light and look to the right of President Jackson's face. It's easy to see once you know where to look. Now, in our quest to unlock the mystery of Alzheimer's disease, there are stenographic clues that have gone unnoticed to the general public. And I'm going to tell you where to look for those hidden clues, too. Why is this important? Because the first step in ending Alzheimer's is to remove the cause or even causes behind it. Make sense? But unless you know who or what you're up against, how can you win when you can't see your opponent? It's like trying to do battle with the breeze. Here's a true story to show you what I mean. The whole region of the United States Capitol was thrown into a 3-week, never-to-be-forgotten nightmare. One man, John Allen Muhammad, and one youth, Lee Boyd Malvo, held the entire region hostage to fear as randomly, one by one, 12 people lost their lives, each to a single bullet fired at long range from an unknown source. The spree actually began in Hammond, Louisiana, when John Gaeta was changing a tire and was shot by Malvo but not killed. Gaeta pretended to be dead while Malvo stole his wallet. Amazingly, Gaeta was able to run to a service station for help, was taken to a hospital, and released only after an hour. A month later, he got an apologetic letter from Malvo. This incident might have gone unnoticed, but Muhammad and Malvo weren't done. 3 more were shot on the way to Washington, 2 not as fortunate as Gaeta. October 2nd, 5:30 a.m., Montgomery County, Maryland. Now, a quick little aside here. This is where I grew up. These were the places our family visited often, and I still lived close by when all this happened, so this is literally close to home for me. Anyway, the Michael's Craft Store window took a shot in Aspen Hill, perhaps a misfire or a little target practice. An hour later, a 55-year-old program analyst lay dead in the parking lot of Shoppers Food. The next day, more were shot. Within 2 hours, Sonny the landscaper just mowing the lawn, a taxi driver pumping gas, a babysitter reading a book at a bus stop, 25-year-old Lori Ann as she vacuumed her car at the Shell station, and later that evening, a 72-year-old retired carpenter. All victims to the sniper's bullet. So it went. No warning, no pattern, no sense. What would you do? How do you defend against an attack that could happen anywhere, anytime? People pumping gas would walk around their cars quickly, hoping to make a difficult target. Tarps draped the gas pumps to hide visitors to the station, while others got their gas at the naval base. Police Chief Moose released part of the content of one of the shooter's messages. It read, "Your children are not safe anywhere at any time." The public schools went into lockdown. Nobody went out. Parents picked up their children early. Field trips, sporting events, canceled. Police were stationed everywhere, and some schools simply closed down altogether. On several occasions, the tarot card of death was left behind, and later a long, rambling note demanding $10 million. An entire region crippled, and the shootings continued. Police were working hard and making progress, but there was one big problem. They were looking for the wrong vehicle, a white van. What they really needed to find was a blue Chevy Capri, which ironically had been an undercover police car. Not once, but several times, police actually were looking right at that very car, had it right in their hands, but they let it go because they didn't know what they were looking for. Just 2 days into the shooting, police stopped the Capri for a minor traffic infraction, but they let it go, and a few hours later, the 5th victim lost his life. On day 6, police were again suspicious about the Capri with the funny tags and a person sleeping inside it, and again, they let it go. And several radio patrol cars had checked the Capri, not far from the shootings, but they were still focused on a white van. When law enforcement finally realized that it was a blue Chevy they were after, it didn't take much. One tip, and they were finally able to end the nightmare. Now, 2 people and 1 gun shouldn't have been able to cause such havoc. But what really gave them power was that they made themselves invisible. Now, once they were revealed, they were quickly and easily dealt with, never again to terrorize anyone. Alzheimer's disease works the same way. It lashes out randomly, shows no mercy, and is bringing our society to its knees, with more and more robbed of their memories, health, and savings, forced to shoulder heavy caretaker responsibilities and pay crushing medical bills. Many valiant people have come together time and again to raise the money that might ransom us from this terrible disease, and yet the attacks are on the rise. Officials repeatedly state that they have not yet been able to identify the source of this attack on so many innocent victims' ability to think. Try Googling the cause of Alzheimer's, and what you will find are a lot of websites that announce that they're going to discuss the causes of Alzheimer's. And yet, when you go in, they say, well, the cause is unknown. And then they talk about symptoms like plaques and tangles and stuff, which is like saying, it's a gun, and we even know what kind of gun, but we don't know who's shooting it. Now, how helpful would it be to know where these attacks on the brain are coming from in the first place, if we want to stop them like the police stopped the Beltway snipers? Here's what the chief medical officer of the Alzheimer's Association said. We desperately need to know more about the causes of Alzheimer's and the factors that affect our risk of getting or not getting the disease. He and many others, including you and I, understand that if we are to win, we need answers to the really basic questions like, where is this coming from? Why the dramatic rise in the past few years? How can we protect ourselves and our loved ones? If you're up for getting some real answers, then let's get to work. And we're going to work backwards. Before we head out to catch some crooks, let's return to the scene of the crime and start with the victim, the brain. Ultimately, an Alzheimer's brain is a brain that's running out of energy. More than any other organ in your body, the brain requires a great deal of power. And when the batteries run out of juice, the lights start to go off. So, how's the plug getting pulled? Actually, there's at least 2 things happening. Number 1, an Alzheimer's brain is literally starving. And 2, an Alzheimer's brain is coming unglued. Let me show you how it works. The main source of energy for the brain is glucose, sugar in all its many forms. In order for the cells in your body, including your brain, to use that glucose, it needs insulin. Like a doorman with a key, insulin is needed to get the cell to open up and let the glucose in. In order to get to a brain cell, both insulin and glucose have one more step. They must pass through the protective blood-brain barrier before they can do their job.
Hi, I'm glucose.
I'm insulin. Welcome to the brain.
I have a delivery for the cells inside.
You've come to the right guy. I'm the only one who can open brain cells for you. Shall we? We are now inside the brain. I'll open this brain cell for you. There you go. Now, you can make your delivery.
Couldn't have done it without you, insulin. Hey insulin. Do you remember me?
Of course. Your glucose. Welcome back to the brain.
I've got more food for those cells inside. Can you help me out again?
It would be my pleasure. for me?
No. You know who this is for.
Fine. That's it. This cell can't take any more.
Insulin. I can't do this without you.
You could not come in, insulin.
Brain?
You let glucose fill my cells too often. And now I'm stuffed. I'm resisting you so you can't open my cells for glucose again.
But, brain. If you don't let me in too, you'll starve.
I'm not listening. La 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 la.
I'm alone in the brain. Party!
Plenty of food in there. But the brain can't use any of it. Not without me.
When there's too much sugar, insulin has to work overtime until the cells just can't take it anymore. This is called insulin resistance. Now, does that phrase sound familiar to you? Yep, that's diabetes. We've long heard of type 1 and type 2 and even a temporary diabetes that happens during pregnancy. But did you know that Alzheimer's disease is now being called type 3 diabetes? It's different from the other diseases because of that blood-brain barrier. Why? Well, the more insulin your body produces, the more the blood-brain barrier, try saying that 3 times fast, resists. So while glucose can still get into the brain, insulin cannot. Now, glucose is left alone in the brain, unable to enter the brain cells without insulin. So the brain literally begins to starve, even though the food's right there at the door. Worse, useless glucose is now left rolling around in the brain, causing havoc in there. Now here's more evidence of another kind of assault on our victim, the ungluing of a brain. Our brain has millions of nerve cells called neurons that transmit all kinds of information from memories to bodily functions. Each neuron has branches that come off of it and reach out to share signals with other neurons. Now zooming in, each of those branches have small tubes inside of them, a little something called microtubules. Like water running through a garden hose, things like nutrients and signals run through these tubules. And they do double duty because they act like a skeleton does, giving the neurons' branches their shape. Really ramping up the magnification on these incredibly important tubules, we see these twisted-looking thingies, I'm sure that's the medical term, called tau proteins that help hold those tubules together. Think of the tubules like a railroad track, and those tau proteins acting like the long metal rails on the track. In an Alzheimer's brain, those tau proteins are derailed. Now, two things happen when the tau proteins are off track. First, the microtubule comes unglued, falling apart so that nothing can flow through them anymore. And second, those now loose strands of tau proteins eventually collect in a big tangle inside the neuron. So, in a nutshell, without those tau proteins, the microtubules fall apart. And when they go, that neuron acts like the Wicked Witch of the West in water. It just shrivels up. And with each neuron put out of commission, the brain loses its ability to work. Here's actual footage of a neuron doing just that.
Shown here is the neurite of a live neuron isolated from snail brain tissue, displaying linear growth due to growth cone activity. It is important to note that growth cones in all animal species, ranging from snails to humans, have identical structural and behavioral characteristics and use proteins of virtually identical composition. In this experiment, neurons also isolated from snail brain tissue were grown in culture for several days, after which very low concentrations were added to the culture medium for 20 minutes. Over the next 30 minutes, the neurite membrane underwent rapid degeneration, leaving behind the denuded neurofibrils seen here. In contrast, other heavy metals added at this same concentration, such as aluminum, lead, cadmium, and manganese, did not produce this effect.
Okay, it's time to use a little steganography to find out what's behind these attacks on the brain. Let's investigate a few clues in plain sight right now. You're probably wondering, so what is it that makes a neuron shrivel up like that? The answer? Mercury. And according to the University of Calgary, where the demonstration you've just seen was filmed, they tried other heavy metals like aluminum, cadmium, manganese, and even lead. None of these had that shriveling effect. Of all the toxic, non-radioactive metals known to science, mercury is the most damaging to our nerves and brain. Remember the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland? The term mad as a hatter was used during the 1800s to refer to those mill workers and hatters who inhaled mercury fumes, used to make felt hats. They were known for being confused and disturbed, many dying from mercury poisoning. Now I know what you're going to say next. Okay, so where does the mercury come from? Well, lots of places, actually. You've probably heard about it being found in large farmed fish like tuna. Mercury comes into play with manufacturing things like paper, fluorescent and neon lamps, paint, insecticides, batteries, and wood preservatives. You might remember merthiolate. My mom used to put that red stuff on our cuts as a disinfectant. Burn like the dickens! So we tried very hard not to get cut. Wonder why you haven't seen it around anymore? It's been banned because it contains something called thimerosal, a mercury-based preservative. Until only recently, 1999, thimerosal was used in contact lens solution. So until it was banned, we were pouring mercury directly onto our eyes. And you'd think that thimerosal would be banned from everything, but it's still used as a preservative in many of the injections being given today. And then there's the elephant in the room that 3 out of 4 people don't even know is there. Those quote-unquote silver fillings that you may already have in your teeth. If you've got them, do you remember your dentist telling you that your filling would be 50% mercury and only 22% silver? Probably not. Would you have liked to have been told that before implanting those fillings right next door to your brain? It's likely not your dentist's fault either. Your dentist's association had been endorsing those quote-unquote silver, also known as amalgam fillings, for about 150 years, and have pronounced the mercury in them perfectly safe once they've bonded with other metals and hardened in a tooth. But when the Krakauer brothers, 2 Frenchmen, first brought amalgam to the U.S., using it was considered grounds for malpractice, and most dentists refused to go near it. In fact, until only recently, dentists could lose their license if they were to just tell us that they were about to install mercury into our mouth, or if they were to offer to help us remove that mercury filling. But our right to informed consent was glossed over. That's because in 1986, warning us about the M word became a violation of the Dental Code of Ethics. In other words, a gag rule. The argument? Dentists shouldn't needlessly frighten their patients, and that mercury-free dentists were trying to make money by removing those quote-unquote harmless fillings. Of course, it hasn't hurt that the association who made this ruling happened to own 2 very profitable patents for those silver fillings. So, who do we believe? Consider this clue. Dentists must follow a very clear no-touch protocol when working with fillings. When one comes out, they can't throw that filling in the garbage. They're to handle the fillings as hazardous waste, both before and after it's put into our mouths. To be honest, this one's a huge and hot debate. One side would like to dismiss the dangers of amalgam as a myth, while the others believe that there are just too many questions and too much evidence to feel safe. The good news is that this gag order has been almost completely removed, and today, about 50% of dentists in the United States now practice mercury-free dentistry with excellent alternatives to amalgam fillings. Other countries have completely banned amalgam fillings. Bottom line on this one, mercury is definitely bad news for the brain. It's been tied directly to Alzheimer's. There are plenty of clues in plain sight out there to confirm this, and yet most folks don't even know to look for them. Now you know something that 2/3 of our population still doesn't. Now, a quick time out. I've decided to break this information about causes of Alzheimer's into 2 parts to prevent information overload. So I'm going to bring today's video in for a landing in a few minutes. One thing you'll hear me frequently encouraging you to do as we go through the evidence and clues I'll be sharing is to keep an open mind and do your own thinking. If you've had any experiences you feel you can share, especially those that can offer hope, I'd especially love to hear from you. I think we all would. You can share your thoughts in the comments below, as well as on Facebook. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and will do my best to respond to as many comments as I can. Now, to wrap up, let me tell you that the next video in this series will be ready to go out in a few days, so watch your email for that announcement. I'll be sharing my top 10 plus 1 most wanted roundup that will list more suspects who have likely played a role in the Alzheimer's epidemic we're currently facing. And we'll be zeroing in on public enemy number 1, a substance that's almost universally feared, and some good news about it. One more thing. If you like Alzheimer's Hope, would you please take a second to hit the like button below? My hope is to generate a grassroots effort to share information. I've got a lot to share, and I know that there's even more puzzle pieces out there that can be helpful to others. The more folks who come aboard, the better. I can't tell you how much I look forward to working together. Thanks.